So the breaking news coming out of gaming this week is that despite only very recently launching this year, XDefiant will be sunsetting in the June of 2025. Despite Ubisoft previously denying reports that the company was going to shut down its newest shooter, it does appear that that will begin sunsetting immediately. Now before we get into it, it's obviously worth taking into account that this is obviously people's livelihoods, this is going to affect people's jobs, so we do need to sort of have a little bit of compassion when judging this game in that regard at least. However, that being said, I really don't think you can say that this was a surprise. Since its release on the 21st of May 2024, XDefiant has just faded into the background of gaming, with your big competitors like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 just absolutely dominating that shooter market at the moment. However, this game's popularity was waning long before the actual release of Black Ops 6. Now when XDefiant first came out, this absolutely exploded in popularity. It peaked at 11 million players during its pre-release, and honestly, given the state of the Call of Duties at the time, it was rightfully hailed as a COD killer. Despite this though, XDefiant definitely had some gameplay issues built in right from the get-go, one of which being the hit registration was incredibly sus. Now that was mainly due to the movement being absolutely wild, and it was patched, but early doors this was a real issue which did turn a few players off the game automatically. However, I think the biggest issues with this game honestly were the lack of updates and new content, because when this game first came out there was absolutely nothing you could do. The game itself only actually launched with 5 different game modes. Now after Season 1 this did increase to 7, but that's still not really a lot of content there. And I think that issue sort of stretches to the rest of the game itself when you look at guns that were available off the get-go, when you look at the different factions, when you just look at things as simple as the maps. There wasn't a lot of variety available for the player. So once you'd experienced it after that first sort of couple of weeks, there wasn't really a lot to get you to come back and experience in a new sense. Now having a lack of specific content on launch isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, as long as you have a progression system that entices the player to continue to play. However, in the case of XDefiant, this was practically non-existent. Don't get me wrong, you'd obviously level up and earn XP and end up being a higher rank than other people. However, the ranks themselves, and to my knowledge they still are just numbers. There's no uniqueness, there's no specialty, there's no like special military rank like you see in the likes of a Call of Duty or in like an old school Halo type game. It's literally just a case of whoever's got the highest number is the highest level. There's no sort of element of prestige to it. Like, would you rather go around telling people that you're level 300 or that you're prestige master or you're an inheritor or something like that? It might not seem that important, but it's such a subtle little way to give the player essentially purpose in what they're achieving on your game and give them a reasoning to continue to play it, particularly when you launch the game without any version of Ranked at all. Ranked wasn't actually released on XDefiant until July, so you had 2 months where you were just playing casually, and that's fine, but it didn't provide the player any incentive to continue playing. And I think this overarching theme of lack of progression can literally spread to virtually every aspect of the game. Take the weapons for example. I really liked the fact that you could level them up purely just by getting kills with them, right? And you'd get all the attachments, and there was a good assortment of attachments, and it enabled you to build your own gun and actually have your own custom setup. I think that's really good. However, from a camo's perspective, I think this was a massive failure, because again, it was just down to getting kills with the gun. There was nothing special that you had to do to obtain it, you could just grind it out by sitting there and churning out kills. I get that camos aren't an essential part of the gameplay, however when you look at other multiplayer games they are a massive reason why people keep playing them as long as they do, as they're trying to earn the most overpowered or most rare camos that they can. So making this just a case of getting thousands upon thousands of kills, it's as boring as it sounds. There's nothing to it, there's no nuance, there's no set challenge, it's just a case of playing the game for that long, and that will just deter players from continuing to do so. Sticking with the weapons, I think the way that you unlocked the guns in XDefiant was really dumb. I really don't like it when a game feels like it has to dictate to you how you have to play in order to progress and unlock stuff. Again, as I mentioned, camos are different because they're not actual core gameplay mechanics. But in terms of unlocking core weapons, this game shouldn't limit your ability to play the game how you want to in order to unlock them. Like for example, I shouldn't have to get 15 marksman rifle longshot kills to just unlock another marksman rifle. It just restricts the whole flow of gameplay, and you begin to have players camping or adjusting the method that they really want to play just because there's physically no other method of earning the guns from the get-go. Players shouldn't be rewarded for playing a specific way when it comes to things as simple as just unlocking another gun. I also think another massive failure attached to this game is their use of the factions that they had at their disposal. Now, despite what you think of Ubisoft, they do have some pretty credible IPs under their account, and they absolutely wasted all of them. Let's be completely honest, nobody gave a shit about the Ubisoft IPs that they used at the start of XDefiant. The only one with any small credence and reputation, at least from my perspective, is Splinter Cell, and that has been a dying franchise for a long time now. The most exciting one they did was in the DLC 1 with the siege operators, but again, if you want to play as those siege operators in a game, you go play fucking Siege! These factions really weren't helped out by the fact that you could only unlock 3 characters, and doing that required stupid challenges off the get-go. You couldn't even pick the specific person in each faction that you wanted to play as. And in terms of the customization of these and just the wide game in general, it was just poor. There wasn't a lot on offer, and it only got even worse when they started releasing seasonal content. Obviously, being a live service game, you need to expect a season pass with games like this. That is absolutely fine, no issues with that whatsoever. However, the content that they released in those season passes was dog shit. They were literally releasing things like the colour blue or the colour green to put on your guns. That shit that should just be in the game, and if it's not in the game, realistically, nobody really wants it anyway. If you're creating a really cool looking gun with a really sick looking camo, or creating a certain character to look a specific way, you don't just make them all blue, you want some sort of aesthetic design, whether it's even like a generic thing like a steampunk. There was just very little to it, and when you look back and think about the dogshit content that they were giving players, you kind of understand why they didn't fucking sell any season passes. It got to a point where XDefiant and Ubisoft actually had to give the players their own microtransaction currency in order to buy the season pass. If that's not desperation about trying to recapture a player base, I really don't know what is. That was an outstandingly weird decision. Now, I know I have just sat here and bitched about XDefiant for the last 6 minutes, but I have just got to say, genuinely, I did enjoy this game for quite a significant amount of time. It was in that void where there was no other shooter to play, and XDefiant did fill that void. I really liked how it wasn't skill-based matchmaking. I thought that gave it a unique little twist. Don't get me wrong, it meant that some games you were going to get absolutely bodied, but in other games you were going to absolutely shit on kids, and that is a fun feeling. It felt very satisfying to get kills in-game, and the time to kill for me was actually pretty good. I enjoy games that have a slightly longer time to kill, as I feel there's a little bit more skill involved rather than just sort of pure reflex action. As I mentioned earlier, I liked the customization system in terms of the guns. It sort of picked elements of all of the good aspects of Call of Duty, where you almost had a pick 10 system, but you could pick from about 70 different attachments, which was really cool. Again, I wish you could have added a lethal or a tactical device, but I understand that the loadouts were kind of aimed for the specific faction, so it wasn't going to suit that style of gameplay. I know I shout on the factions, but I did actually like the fact that you could use them to win the objective. That was something I really did enjoy about XDefiant. Was initially there was no TDM released, it was just an objective based shooter. I found that very fun. I think you could play, say, the Phantoms for the supporting role and have the big dome shield around you. Or you could be the Splinter Cell operators and then run around with the one-shot pistol and wipe a whole team. That allowed a lot of variety of gameplay, which was really, really enjoyable. Unfortunately, this game finds itself joining the many of other disappointments that Ubisoft have faced this year. Star Wars Outlaws underperformed massively and was hit with criticism, and Assassin's Creed Shadows was hit with so much backlash it's actually been delayed until next year now. And with it looking like the company is going to be soon changing hands, Ubisoft could have really done with the win to up that share price a little bit. But ultimately, what do you guys think? Are you disappointed about XDefiant being shut down? Personally, I am. I do feel like this could have been an actual genuine competitor to Call of Duty had it got the love and support that it deserved. However, it wasn't meant to be. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts down in the comments below, and if you are new here and you have enjoyed, please do consider subscribing. It means the absolute world. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll hopefully see you in another video sometime soon.